So this is a tutorial on creating walk and idle controls for a third-person character within Unity. We are kind of essentially doing this from scratch, but not creating their animations ourselves. We just simply don't have enough time with the course and everything like that. Best thing you can do is either download the resources for in-session tutorials, and that's the exact file I'm going to be using today in this tutorial, or you can easily create your own Ybot, Xbot, and create your own animations. I would suggest using my resources for now, but if you're feeling pretty confident with it, if you've done this before, this may be a quicker way, I don't know. Or you may have a quicker way and you can show me. Okay, cool. So let's go back onto Unity. As you can see, as soon as you open this folder, you can see we've got a Ybot. We're just going to click and drag this in. Lovely jubbly, wherever he goes, doesn't matter. So I'm just going to center him. So zero him out, as we say. There we go, lovely. So that fits with my main camera view, but doesn't really fit with my game camera. So what I'm going to do is click on my main camera here, go up to Game Object and move to View. There we go. Oh, that's done something a bit different, isn't it? Let's go Align to View. There we go. So it's Game Object and Align with View. That sorts that one out. Cool. So what we're doing today is creating movement with animations for our controller. So what I'm going to do first is we're going to create a script. So if I come out of this, make sure everything's nice and neat and tidy, create folder. Let's just call this scripts. Double click into scripts. Then we're going to create a C# script, and I'm going to call this Ybot controller with no spaces. There we go. If that was like a name of a character, you can name it that specific character or something like that. That would be fine. So I'm going to double click on this, make sure Visual Studio opens. Okay, so with Visual Studio open, you can command, and I'm just going to put that a little bit, I've zoomed in way far into that, that's fine. This is set up all nice and lovely for me because I'm using the updated version of Visual Studio and Unity. So, like anything that we create with, just like any moving object, like we've done with a capsule or cube before in previous tutorials, we're still going to use our arrow keys and our WASD. So we're still going to use vertical and horizontal inputs from Unity. And just as a reminder, what we can do is click onto Unity, and if you ever want to find out what they are, we go into Edit, Project Settings, Input Manager, Axes, and as you can see, we can see horizontal, we can see vertical, and we're going to be taking the inputs from Unity. So as soon as we script it all together, we should have simple basic motion movement horizontally and vertically. So this will work a little bit different to what we usually do with a capsule, but the basic principle is there. So before, usually we do the movement and then we add speed after that. We're not going to rush through this bit, and we're just going to do speed straight away. So we're going to create a variable of float and call this speed as we usually do. That's going to equal 5. Cool. We then can do a float of, and call this rotation speed, because our character is going to obviously rotate around. So when we're looking around, and we're going to equal 100F for that. Okay, so that should sort us out for our speed of moving backwards and forwards, and our rotation speed of looking around, moving around when we are using the arrow keys. Okay, so we don't need anything in start for now. We're just going to go straight to update and start inputting those movements. So the first thing we're going to do, it's going to do float translation, because that means we're going to move which equals input dot get axis, and we're going to call up vertical. There we go, and we can just quickly times that by our speed variable that we've created at the top there. Lovely. Then we're going to do float rotation. This is for our rotation speed, so that's also going to equals, oh, not flat, float rotation equals input dot axis again, and this time it's going to be calling up horizontal. Make sure you spell that correctly and is exactly as it says it in the input manager, times by our rotation speed. There we go, lovely, fantastic. Then obviously if we did Control S or went file save for this, we would have movement, but as you know, we wouldn't have it in our time. It would be every 60 frames per second, so we would whiz across the screen and have literally no control of our Y-bot at all. So what we're going to do is add in translation, there we go, there it is, equals time dot delta time. Oh, we need to times that actually, so we can times that and then do rotation times by equals time dot delta time. Can't spell today, it's good. And semicolon. Lovely, that seems to like that at the moment. Transform. So we want to translate to move forward. Translate. And we are going to go 0, 0, and then put our translation there. We're then going to go to transform dot rotate. It needs to be a capital R. There we go. And then our rotation will obviously be on the Z. Sorry, on the Y-axis. Sorry. There we go. So that should, if I click and save that. So the problem when you do these tutorials off the cusp, you just got to make sure they work. Let's see if there's any issues. Importing assets. Okay, it didn't have a go, did it? Okay, so let's make sure this actually works on our Y-bot, shall we? So we can drag this up. There we go. There's our script. Let's press play. And we should, aha, there we go, there we go, there's our rotation speed, which is quite lovely, and we should be able to move forward and back as well. Fantastic. So that's the first steps. We now can look around with left and right, and we can move forward and backwards with our controller. So that has worked perfectly. Brilliant. Cool. Great. So next step is we need to look at the animation side of everything to get the animations working with the movements that we've just created. So what we can see is if we look on our Y-bot, which I've just appropriately clicked on, we can see an animator, and we need to look at controller. Okay, and at the moment it says none. There is no controller syncing in with our animations or anything. So this is where we need to create an animator controller. Okay, so if we just go up to assets, we'll save it in here for now. Or actually we could save it into Y-bot. We'll make sure we save it into here. So we'll go up to this plus. and we're going to look for an animator controller. So if we click that, animator controller, there it is. So what you need to do is just click the plus in the top left hand corner of project, go to animator controller, and we're just going to call this Y-Bot controller. Again, just like we did for our script, it doesn't matter because it's totally different file formats. That is fine. We're going to add the Y-Bot controller to our animator controller for our Y-Bot. So if we click on here, if you've got no controller at the moment, let's click and drag this into there. There we go. Fantastic. Cool. Okay, so we can now we've got an animator controller, we should be able to go to window, animation, animator tab. There we go. So this is just tabbed on to our scene. For now, this is fine because you've got a game scene down there. So if we really wanted to press play, or we can actually, I might just change it down to there, so we can see everything going on. Okay, so any state entry, any state is essentially just allowing us to add any kind of animation in there, or a stop at certain points for colliders or things like that, but we won't be using any state for now. Entry point is if we drag any animation into there, essentially entry is like our start, our void start within scripting. So we have to do entry before we can go to any kind of animation. So this is just like starting up our animations. Again, just as like I said, like void start. So what I'm going to do is in our animator tab, I'm going to go to make sure I can see these. If you click on this one, we can see that this animation here is Y-Bot at neutral idle. So this is what we're going to start with, just a neutral idle walk. Okay, so I'm going to click and drag this into here. There we go. So as you can see, in our basic animator tab, in our entry, hopefully this is working how we want it. I don't know if this would affect our controller just yet. Oh yeah, it does. There we go. So as you can see, that idle animation has already affected our animator controller. Because we didn't have an animator controller before, we've now created it, and now we can see that that idle animation has affected our controller, which is good. Exactly what we wanted. I didn't know if that was going to work, so there we go. So if we click on this animation, I'm just going to make sure, if we go under animation, import animation, loop time. So I'm going to make sure it's looping because, well, I don't want to just suddenly go back to T-pose on our idle animation. So what I did was I clicked on our original animation. It sticks you on materials, but go over to animation, make sure loop time is checked, and then we're all good. We can just click apply for that, and that will continuously loop over and over. So if we press play, so we can see we've got this natural pose here. If we go into the animator tab, we can see that now this neutral pose should loop over every single time. Okay, so it's not just going to finish and we're not just going to jump back into T-pose. Okay, wicked. Awesome. Let's go back into there. So we've got the loop time checked. So what we're going to do now is go back to our animator tab and add our walk animation. So let's go to a walk animation, click and drag that in here. There we go. So now we've got a walk animation in. Nothing will happen. If we press play on here, nothing will happen because nothing is linked. So entry, so the starting of our game is linked to neutral idle. Hence why when we press play on our game, our controller went into that idle pose. But nothing will work here because we've got no links from neutral idle to walking in place. Okay, so what we're going to do, now we've added that in, we're going to create something called a transition, and that's quite easy to do. So what we're going to do is go right click and go make transition, and so you get this little arrow, and this arrow is going to go straight to walking in place. So we just click it onto there. So we're then going to create another transition from walk to idle, because obviously that's a natural kind of progression of things. You can go from idle pose, so from standing to walking, but you can also go from walking back to idle. So on the walking in place animation, we're going to right click, go to make transition, and that's going to animate and link that straight back to our neutral idle pose. Okay, so in the Animator tab, we've now got to create a ball. And if you don't know what remember a ball is essentially a true or false statement. Okay, so we're just going to go to parameters, and as you can see, the list is empty. We haven't got anything at the moment, and we are going to go click our plus, and there we go. There it is, ball. So we're going to click and choose our ball, which we now know is a true or false statement, and we are going to create this ball and call it is walking. Okay, we can just press enter, and then that will create our true or false statement. Okay, so we now need to add our is walking statement to each of our animations, because this is how the animations can work in between with the movement of our controller. Okay, so when we press forward, we know is walking is true. When we're not pressing anything, we know is walking is false. It's as simple as that, but it's just the whole sort of put together can be a little bit confusing. Okay, so if we click on this neutral idle animation, we can see that motion, speed, fine. We can sort out speed and all that stuff later. It's idle, it doesn't really matter about speed at the moment. We can look at our transitions. Yep, that's good. Idle to walking, fantastic. So what we're going to do, we need to add a behavior. So if we add a behavior, oh, actually, it's all changed. We could probably add a behavior. Could we type in is walking? Is that going to pop up? Cool. There we go. So once we click onto there, we can see we've got our animations. Once we click on our transitions, so you click on here, that won't disappear now, but there we go. And we can see our fade in from walking to back to neutral idle pose. So what I'm going to do is we are going to add a condition. So if I click that plus, we've got is walking, and so is walking will be true. So as we go from idle standing to walking, walking will be true because we're walking. Okay, so when we click on our walk to idle, so we need to click that transition. Yep, so is walking is true, so let's click that transition back. So walking to neutral, if we add our condition, is walking is then false. Cool. Okay, so we need to now go back to our script and see if we can get that all fixed and working. So let's go back to our scripts. Lovely jubbly. So we need to create a new variable because we need to call up the animator. So at the moment, Visual Studio and Unity have no idea. Well, they know we've opened up the Animator tab, but doesn't know that we want to use it within our game. So what we need to do is call up the Animator tab. We're just going to call this anim for animation or animating or whatever. And then in void start, we can put anim equals this dot get component and animator. Fantastic. Okay, so let's make some space under the original void update. So we've got a movement first. We'll leave that. We don't need to get in between that or make it any more busy than it already is. So underneath our movement script, what we're going to do is create an if statement and then set that ball. Okay, so if brackets our translation, which is our movement, is 0, what we can do is anim dot set ball And then we're going to do a call up just like the animation that we've done. Is walking, remember, it needs to be exactly how we spelt it. So if you see from is walking here to is walking there, it needs to be exactly how we spelt it, comma, true. So that's our first part, and then after that we create an else statement. And again, anim.setBall is walking, comma, false. So essentially we're just scripting what we've just set in the Animator tab essentially. So with our movement, we know that if translation is 0, so if we are walking, true. If we're not walking, false. It's as simple as that. So what we're going to do, we're going to save that. Press play on our go. Oh, we'll make sure it loads it up first, and then we can press play. And there we go. So we've got our idle pose in, but we've got nothing else working. Okay. We can sort that out. Okay, I understand. Right, okay, there. Right, let's have a look. So if we go on to our Animator tab, let's click on the transition from idle to walk, and we need to uncheck has exit time. So let's uncheck that, and let's quickly go back to our game to see if that works. Fixes anything. Aha, there we go. So if I turn my controller around, so what I've done is essentially we're saying that neutral doesn't have an exit time, so we just want to get rid of it as soon as we walk. So there we go. So walking is a little bit slippy at the moment. We're not walking backwards, but we are walking forwards. We can check that speed out. We definitely need to attach our camera to our controller, but we do have walking, which is really, really good. Cool. Okay, so we're going to drag our main camera to our Y-bot in the hierarchy. So let's just do that very quickly. Let's press play. So we should have, so our camera should just follow us now. There we go, that's fine. Obviously it's walking off in the scene, but as you can see the bottom screen in the game, that's working absolutely fine. Lovely. Even the walk doesn't look that slippy actually in there. Brilliant. Cool. So we've got that working and we've got that sorted out. Okay, so we now need to manipulate the character speed. As I said, it's a little bit slippy, and we need to control some other bits and pieces as well. So we're going to go to our Animator tab, and what we're going to do there, we should create another parameter. So this time our parameter is going to be float. There it is, right at the top. And this one is going to be called, what are we going to call this one? Character speed. Character speed. And it can remain as 0 for now. That is fine. Cool. Awesome. So we're going to click on the walking in place animation and check multiple parameters, if I can find and see that. Normalize. Oh, there we go. If we check multiple parameters, there we go. Character speed has popped into there. So this is going to sort out the slippiness of our animation of the walking. It's also going to end our walking animation, because at the moment I'm experiencing it. If you're not, well done. If I press arrow, the walking animation will play through, but as soon as I let go, I don't go back to an idle pose. So that is a bit of an issue and we need to sort that out. So what I'm going to do is click on parameters, make sure we've got character speed in there, go back into Visual Studio and create our add-ons for character speed, so we can manipulate that, change that. If we want to add a run animation later, we can add all that in because we're creating that where we've created that new float of character speed. So okay, under translation at the moment it's saying if translation is at 0. So we want to change these symbols to equal to 0 is changing, or is equal to 0. At the moment it won't really like that, but that's fine. Underneath this we can go anim dot set ball, no, not set ball, set float, because we've just created the new one. And this time obviously we're going to call up character speed. Cool, there we go. Make sure you spell that correctly, and that's obviously going to link with our translation. And then under our else statement, we're just going to write anim again, anim dot set float, and again it will be character speed, but obviously this time character speed, and this time we're just going to set it at 0. So it makes sure that there won't be any slippiness with our walking, with our speed. When our walking animation, it should just stop. Okay. So even though translation doesn't seem to like that, does it? That's interesting. Mix floating points, numbers, and compare different sort of. Well, let's see if that comes up as a major error. Nope, it hasn't. That's fine. I can deal with that. Maybe a little bit of dodgy coding on my part, but oh well, when is it not? Okay, so if we look at our walking in place animation, we should see our speed is set at 1. Let's just set that at 5 really quickly. Let's go into press play to see if we do indeed have. So we can turn. Let's start to walk. There we go. Oh, the walking is very, very slippy and slow. That's a bit better. But what we can do is also walk backwards. There we go. So we just need to sort out that kind of speed, but we can walk forwards, we can walk backwards. And when we stop, as I said before, we can step forwards and backwards as well. Let's just unplay that and see what that looks like at 1, because that was slow at 5. Let's turn around. Oh man, that's really slow. Okay, so let's try 15. That's better. So 15 seems to be quite nice actually. Oh, that seems a bit weird. We're freezing there. Okay. So what we may need to do, because we're freezing on the walks, let's have a look at our animator walking. Got our transitions. Has exit time. Check. Let's uncheck that and see what happens. Not sure this will fix the problem. Oh, it does fix the problem. There we go. So if we uncheck has exit time, we can go back from just walking at a nice speed, stopping, and it goes straight back to idle. That's a nice little transition in there. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, and I'll see you very, very soon. Thank you. Bye.